When Canada signed the historic NAFTA trade deal in 1994, Mexico was a fairly closed economy with few manufacturing exports. 20 years later, it's seen as Latin America's economic star and expected to remain so for at least the next decade. Mexico's manufactured exports have grown tenfold since NAFTA, with 80% going to the United States. Recent constitutional changes opened up the country's state-owned energy giant, Pemex. That will bring much-needed investment dollars and technical know-how to the energy sector. Those reforms also give Mexico access to cheaper natural gas from Canada. That could lower electricity costs to Mexican manufacturers by as much as 20%. Chief among those manufacturers, the Mexican auto industry. With $19 billion in new investment, production has doubled in the past 5 years to 3.2 million vehicles in 2014. By 2020, Mexico will likely be the world's #6 auto producer with an annual production of 4.7 million vehicles. I talked with Mexico's Secretary of the Economy, Ildefonso Guajardo, last Friday. He was part of the North American Competitiveness and Innovation Conference. I asked him how he plans to increase his country's trade.
Well, definitely our most important trading partners are Canada and the US. Basically, almost close to 78% of our trade is with our North American partners. Mexico has been, since NAFTA, being very intensive in trade agreements. We have signed 10 with 45 nations in the world. That gives us access to a 1 billion market of customers in the world. We have been, by the instructions of President Peña, being very active in Latin America, trying to really join forces with the countries that are more modern, friendly to investment, free traders like Peru, Chile, and Colombia. We just are integrating the Pacific Alliance. It was signed in last February. And also we are involved, as you know, with Canada and the US in TPP. Right now, we are aiming at finishing this negotiation in the first quarter of the next year. And there is a commitment to modernize and widen our agreement with Europe that is 14 years old. So Mexico is a great platform in the middle of this crossroads between West, East, North, and South.
One of the things you've achieved is a modernized, highly efficient manufacturing base. How have you done that? What was your approach to making Mexico a destination for manufacturers?
Well, that had to do a lot with the decision to join NAFTA, because it was a strategic decision to really change the structure of the Mexican economy. Before NAFTA, our economy was 65% oil and minerals and 35% basically manufacturing, our exports. Today we are exporting 83% manufacturing, and in highly complex areas like the automotive industry, like the aerospace industry, and that has a lot to do with the competitive advantage. We have a young labor force, a skillful labor force that has been proven very useful. As a matter of fact, one of the Canadian companies that is Mexico Bombardier. Today, 20 years later after the first investment, they have recognized that originally they were attracted to Mexico because of low-cost production facilities, but now they are definitely pricing the high quality of Mexican labor and the capacity of the country to become competitive in manufacturing around the world. And I think that is going to be even more dynamic with the new dimensions of the energy self-sufficiency in the North American region.
How much change do you expect to see in your economy and in your trading relationships as you open up your energy market? It's seen as a pivotal moment in Mexico's history.
I think that energy reform in Mexico is a game changer, and that comes aligned at the same time with new technologies has transformed the future of the energy sector in North America. And that is one of the main pillars for the future of manufacturing in North America. When you split exports between energy intensive and non-energy intensive, you see that in the last 5 years, energy-intensive exports from North America have skyrocketed in terms of dynamics, which tells you a lot about where are our strategic advantages in international trade.
In fact, increasingly, Canada is looking to Mexico as a place that we need to compete with, and we're not always succeeding in the sense of losing some manufacturing. Most recently, Ford making a decision not to invest in a manufacturing plant in Ontario, choosing instead Mexico.
You know, we used to have that view in terms of North American competition. Give you an example. We lost a bid to attract Toyota to Mexico, and it went to San Antonio, Texas in the US. When you look at the numbers, after the years, our exports of auto parts to San Antonio from Mexico are quite great, which means that investing $1 in North America, either be Canada, the US, and Mexico, it will have an impact in all the regions. And Canada has a very interesting advantage in innovation and value-added knowledge and technologies, which can be a plus in the North American market.
So you would encourage us not to feel insecure about this, but embrace it.
No, I think that when you know the difference with today's world is that you have to recognize that value added in the global value chains not necessarily had to do with the specific process. We are all part of the global process, and what we have to ensure is that those sectors where we are more competitive are reflected in our contribution to the global value chains and creating high quality jobs and good paying jobs.
So on that front, what could we be doing? We have this working agreement called NAFTA. It's old now, 20 years old, and newer trade agreements look quite different. You could argue that the CETA looks very different in how it's structured. Should we be revisiting and creating a real continental plan to compete?
I think there are two ways to go about how to update NAFTA and how to look in the next 20 years of North American competitiveness. One has to do with how we arrange our agendas in order to lower transaction costs in North America, to make North American production process more effective since we are making things together. The other view is how we go about TPP, because in a way we are modernizing NAFTA through TPP. 20 years ago you didn't have a charter on electronic trade, or 20 years ago you didn't have as ambitious charter in intellectual property. So there are many things that Canada, US and Mexico, through TPP, we can update those things that are in our advantage to update about NAFTA. But the basic element in this strategy is to keep reminding ourselves that we have to search in new trade agreements for improving North American competitiveness and to place North America in a highly competitive place in the world market.
When you speak to businesses about investing, manufacturing, and direct investing in Mexico, the issue of still high levels of crime, drug-related crime, must come up. Where do you think you are in terms of managing that and resolving it?
Let me share with you that there are 32 states within the Mexican Federal Republic. And definitely President Peña has recognized that in 2 or 3 of them, we still have a long way to go in order to normalize activities. As you know, the state of Guerrero, but there are other 29 federative states in Mexico that are presenting very good conditions about a stable environment, security, where we are getting a lot of investment. In the first 20 months of President Peña administration, Mexico had attracted almost $50 billion of direct foreign investment, which basically even puts higher the after NAFTA level that was about $20,000 billion. So what that is telling you is that investors are more sophisticated nowadays, and they look into a country and they perceive the difference between regions and states. Obviously, President Peña's commitment is that he has to guarantee the same quality of justice and security to all Mexicans. That's why he's highly committed to those 2-3 states where we have to reinforce our efforts.
All right, we need to leave it there, Secretary. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you for the invitation.